Welcome to Politics Done Right. My name is Egberto Willis. I'm here today with somebody who understands conflict, something that we really have to work with right now. Marc Gopin, Dr. Marc Gopin, how are you doing today?
Nice to meet you. I'm doing fine.
Let me ask you, first of all, in this kind of a world that we have today, where Democrats cannot get along with Republicans, where we have countries like that used to be allies that are no longer allies, or we're having problems becoming allies. We can talk about Turkey, we can talk about Syria, all these other countries. Mm-hmm. Tell me, what do we need to do to solve this problem?
One of the most important things that we need to do is make it unprofitable in politics for people to divide based on hate. Mm-hmm. In other words, we're getting better and better at lessening violence in the world from the point of view of generals and other kinds of actors in the past who used to promote warfare. Now we have a big problem with the fact that you can get a lot of votes by hating on somebody. And so that is a problem that is dividing countries within and also causing wars from without.
You just mentioned something. We can make money on dividing people. Explain.
Well, there's a great deal of money to be made at selling weapons. Mm-hmm. There's a great deal of money to be made at being able to guarantee a body of voters who you can stimulate to be afraid of somebody or to hate somebody. And if you can manage to find a formula to do that, and if you can fool people on media into believing that, you get a lot of power and money as a result of that.
First, I want to ask you two questions. That breaks down into two questions. What's the formula, and who is promoting that formula?
Well, in every country, in every democracy in the world, or mm-hmm. proto-democracy, mm-hmm. where they have elections, there are great people in politics, there are great politicians who are focused on issues, and then there are others who don't have an issue, or maybe they're just in it for the money, mm-hmm. and they find a way to get elected based on making somebody afraid of somebody else, and then saying, I'm here to protect you from them. So it's a politics of hatred or race.
Ironically,
and it could be religion, it could be race, it could be color, it could be foreigners, minorities, homosexuals. I mean, there's many, many ways mm-hmm. to galvanize power through hatred. And it's usually because that particular politician doesn't have much else to say.
Right. Actually, that is present. In other words, the only thing, I mean, we don't want to be partisan, but this is actually a transpartisan issue, right? Exactly. In other words, trying to foment hate for an ulterior motive doesn't have to do with left or right. It just has to be with whomever it is.
It doesn't even have to do with religion.
Right.
You could be very religious, you could be very liberal, very conservative. You have issues you believe in. Sometimes you believe in social justice or the poor. Sometimes you believe in the unity of the family. Very conservative. You don't have to hate on anybody. You could just focus on the issue. But if you want power, you focus on hate.
Now tell me...
That's what we have to do the opposite of.
Exactly. Tell me about what exactly is CRDC at George Mason University?
So I direct a center for the last 20 years called Center for World Religions, Diplomacy, and Conflict Resolution. Mm-hmm. And I work on interfaith efforts in conflict zones in the United States of people across faiths who are working together for peace and justice. Mm-hmm. And so I've done a lot of work in Syria for 15 years, in Israel-Palestine for 30 years, and I developed friendships across all of those lines.
Now, Marc, tell me a little bit, because I'm believe it or not, I'm familiar with your work. In fact, with the Coffee Party USA, we've had you on live stream before.
Right.
Right. So I mean, we did that. I think last year sometime.
Yes.
You do very important work, and I found it impressive, the work that you've done in Palestine. Mm-hmm. So tell me, I had a Jewish woman on my show recently. Right. And we were talking about things like the BDS movement. We were also talking about things like two-state solutions.
Right.
A Jewish person said she didn't believe in a two-state solution, but she also thought that it should be one state with everybody having equal access to the system. Doesn't that do something against? And I know I'm a bit off subject, but I wanted this answered from somebody of your caliber. Doesn't that do something for Israel being a Jewish state?
Well, yes, and this is a difference between interpretations of Zionism or Jewish nationalism, mm-hmm. and yes, it would be a threat to that idea of Jewish people who are 0.01% of the population of the world, right. who wanted their one little space in the world.
Right.
And unfortunately, there one little space landed right on top of another tiny little people called the Palestinian people. So we have a classic conflict, an existential conflict, and some people say it's non-negotiable. There has to be a Jewish state and a Palestinian state. Others on the ground now in both sides are coming to the idea that maybe we just have to have one confederation with certain different expressions. And in the end, when you have a conflict that's this bad, the most important thing is to create nonviolent relationships and collaboration between as many people as possible so that they eventually shift the politics in the direction of less violent or all or nothing solutions.
Can I ask you to have a conversation with Mr. Netanyahu?
Well, yeah. What can I say? I have met with the heads of state here and there, but I try to focus on the most constructive meetings and the most constructive opportunities.
Last question. So why are you here at the Bridge Alliance?
Oh, I really believe in what Debbie Lynn has been trying to do in the United States. I've refocused a lot of my efforts on the dangers right now for civil conflict in the United States. I'm fascinated by extremes here, and that a lot of us focused our energy globally, but we did not understand the conflicting narratives here. We have to launch into a deep, deep empathy with people of color and the horror that they've been through in the last few hundred years here. And we also have to launch into a deep empathy with majority or white or indigenous people who are white, who also have their own narrative and their own story, in order to elicit from them a better vision of the future, in order to reframe things around, not around hate, but around needs, interests, common values, and discovering those. That's a particular art that we all have to get much, much better at.
Dr. Marc Gopin, let me tell you, I think it's important work that you do. I think more people like you have to be just as intentional to make the change that we need. Thank you so kindly for being on Politics and Right.
Wonderful to meet you.